Hi, this is Scott from Whiskey and Sunshine Off Grid. I'm going to do a short video about one of my favorite types of rifles. I'm not going to get into specifics too much, but something I noticed the other day when I went to the gun store, which is actually just a small gun store. It's actually a gunsmith. He has guns there, probably maybe 30 or 40 guns. It's a small shop. But one thing I seem to notice there and at other stores is that they can't keep lever actions in stock. There may be a few there, but they're never the same ones. They don't stay. No matter what the caliber is, they just seem to walk right out the door. Used, new, whatever it is, people are buying them up like crazy. So I get to talking with my gunsmith, the owner of the store, and we're wondering why, where's this coming from? You know, these guns, not too long ago, back in the 80s and the 90s, nobody wanted them. Nobody cared about them. They were outdated. Everybody was buying high-powered rifles that were bolts, bolt action, semi-automatics. If they were buying a lever action, they were buying a Browning lever action, chambered in .308. You know, those options were out there. But, you know, for the most part, unless they were something collectible, your old Winchesters and Marlins just sat there. You could walk into any pawn shop and take your pick of half a dozen that were in the rack. And they weren't high priced. Two of these guns, I've got less than $300 in. They were bought from friends at work or traded with friends at work, things like that. You know, this one here I got for my daughter. I think I paid $200 for it. This one is a Winchester Trapper saddle ring carbine. It's really short. It's got the saddle ring, curved butt plate. It's the angle eject model, so it's later. You know, and it isn't an FN gun because FN, Browning, I was trying to think what the name of the parent, Harristall, they bought them out in the late 90s and kept the company going until 2006. Before that, it was company owned under Winchester Repeating Arms. Before that, it was Winchester Olin, you know, all the way back. So there's been many changes in the name, very little changes in the gun. Same thing can be said for the Marlins. This is a Model 336. It replaced the Model 36, which replaced the Model 33. All largely the same, except for the fact that these 336s, more of them had a curved wrist back here and a pistol grip. They also had these round bolts. They were all flat tops, so they lent themselves well to being scoped. That's what kept these in the market. Winchesters were always the lighter, easier to carry gun. That's what kept them in the market. That, and they were, you know, their history. People loved them. It's what Grandpa had, what Dad had. This one actually is my grandfather's gun. It is a 1913. This one was my father's gun. This gun is a Marlin 336 made in 1949. This one is one of the guns everybody loves to hate. It is a post-1964, I think it's a 1982 model, Winchester Model 94. This one is like a 98 model, and they changed some of the stuff and made it a little better. None of it matters. I'm telling you that most of the changes in these guns were all cosmetic. They were all cosmetic. Now, there's other lever guns out there from the same companies and from many others. Some new, some old. Henry's making new ones. Smith & Wesson has now started making them. There's a company out there called Bond Bond Arms that makes Derringers. They've just started like making a lever action AR. It's magazine fed. You know, it's got Magpul furniture. I mean, it's crazy the stuff they're getting into now. You know, and I guess people are buying them because of the bans on what we would call modern sporting rifles. A lot of states, they're all but banned. You can't have them. If you can't have one of those, having a tube-fed magazine that holds 7 or 8 rounds and will fire very fast from the shoulder without having to drop it to work the action, so you never lose the sight picture. I'm telling you, lever actions they're pretty damn fast and they're very effective. And when you talk about lever actions around here in the Northeast, mostly you're talking about the 30-30, which originally was called 30 Winchester Centerfire. When they changed it to 30-30, that name was used because the original cartridge was the 30 caliber cartridge, it being pushed by 30 grains of black powder. And then actually that was one of the chamberings from the original Model 94, because the original Model 94 that came out in 94 was only for black powder. In 1895, they started to use nickel steel, so it's much harder, much more durable. They came out with the cartridge 3030, and they called it 30 Winchester centerfire, and they started using smokeless powder, so we had higher pressures. And the Model 94, it lent itself really well to that. So the 3030 is what I'm going to call it from here on out. It became by far the most produced cartridge in these lever actions. I mean, pistol caliber carbines have been around for even longer. Frequently, the old days, they were chambered in 4440, 3220, guns that, especially like U.S. Marshals, people in law enforcement, they could have a sidearm and a rifle chambered in the same cartridge. So it was very handy for them, because these were working guns. They always were. It's what they were designed for. They're the American gun. And the Winchester 94, it saw service in the U.S. military in both World Wars. It saw service overseas in France. French actually in World War I they contracted Winchester to build rifles specifically for them. The only thing really different was the swing swivels and some small stamping issues and stuff that were done later on. A lot of those rifles went to France. Some went to Belgium. The Belgians used them for a while. Then the Belgians shipped them back to Canada, so they came back to this continent. Some went to the United States. Some went to Canada. Some of those guns ended up going back to Europe in the Second World War as Lend-Lease weapons, because the British, well, they had disarmed their population. Not a good thing to do when old Hitler's next door raising hell, is it? But nonetheless, we all know the politics behind that, so I won't get into it. But also the U.S. Signal Corps, they bought Model 94s, used them to guard the spruce that was being harvested and to squelch labor riots and stuff in the Pacific Northwest. So these guns have been used for everything. I don't think the Marlins have been used in the military or police as much as the Winchesters have, but the Marlins have always been right there. These two companies have gone tit for tat, changing things for a century. Who's got the upper hand because of a cartridge? Who's got it because of a feature on the gun? I'm just telling you, they're out there. Largely in 3 calibers. 3 calibers are going to be by far the most common calibers in lever action rifles, and that's going to be the 30-30, of course, the 32 Winchester Special, and the 35 Remington. You're apt to see 32 Winchester Special and 30-30 in the Model 94s, and you're apt to see more the 35 Remington and the 30-30 in the Marlins. But you still will see them in 32 Special, and you'll still see these Model 94s being chambered in, other calibers too. So it's actually, fairly common. Those are the 3 biggest ones. Those are the 3 big ones. Now, probably the 80s, you would find one of these guns behind a door or in a gun rack or in a closet in almost every rural home in the United States of America. People hunted with them, people ranched with them, people used them for self-defense. They just so many purposes that they used them for. If somebody said, I got a rifle at home, chances are they were talking about either the Marlin or the Winchester, and it was probably a 30-30, might have been a 32 or a 35. But that's just the way it was. Then along come the 80s, states started changing their laws, and they started requiring people to shoot bucks only. Here in my state, now we have a lottery that will let you shoot an antlerless deer, but unless you have a permit that says you can, the antler's got to be at least 4 inches long. So if you're in the field or in the woods and you see a deer, you have to be able to look at it and judge, are those antlers 4 inches long or not? Most folks look up and they think, well, If it's a crotch horn and it's got a Y on each side, you know it's 4 inches long. It's a 4-pointer. It's legal. I can shoot it, so you shoot it. But if it's out further, you know, these guns will shoot farther than what you can really see the horns on the deer. So Marlin started to really pick up then because they always had a flat top on their receiver. And you could always put a scope on them. And a lot of people did. You'll find as many of these Marlins out there with scopes as you will without. For a long time, you'd find most of them with scopes. A lot of them came and drilled and tapped from the factory, ready to put scopes on them. They were more of a modern gun with their round bolt and their flat top. The Winchesters, they stayed more true to form, and they were top eject until the 80s. They changed them to angle eject, which made them easier to scope, and you could start putting scopes on those. And this was all done to try to keep up with the bolt actions and the semi-automatic that the sportsmen wanted to go deer hunting with. Also, they got to have bigger calibers. They went to 30-06, 308, 7mm, 300 Magnum, all the way up. Everything you can imagine. Bolt guns, semi-autos with scopes, and that became the way to go. At that time, a lot of these guns got kind of put away. Some of them got sold, Some of them ended up in pawn shops. They were around. They were everywhere. They're still around. Especially these post-64 Winchesters with their sintered steel, which is like an iron-plated receiver, because they had a bad reputation. People didn't like them. The blue one didn't stick to them. And then because they were iron, they rusted. So people didn't like that. This one is a post-64. It does have some flaking and some issues on it, but my daughter loves it, and she wouldn't have it any other way. Someday if she decides to have it reblued, now modern bluing practices have caught up, and the chemicals have caught up. You can actually reblue these, and it kind of looks like they're going to stay. They look really nice. I'm pretty sure she's going to leave this one the way it is. It's her favorite gun. I built her a brand new AR-15. If anything ever happens, the first gun she's going to grab, she's already told me, it's not the AR-15, it's this. Because this in her hands is comfortable. It's easy to carry, and it packs a hell of a wallop. You hit something with a 30-30, it's going down. It may get back up, but trust me, it's going down. Mostly because you're looking at a bullet either from 30 caliber to 32 to 35 caliber being pushed out of the barrel at roughly twice the speed of sound. Now, when that hits something, safe to say, it does some damage. It's not uncommon with a 30-30 with a 150 grain bullet to shoot all the way through the deer and have the bullet go out the other side. So you're talking 20 inches of penetration. It is a very effective round. Now, the 30-30 can still be found mostly, as far as the ammunition goes, everywhere you go. So the ammo's everywhere. If you're not picky about your bullet weight, you don't care if you've got 150s or 170s. Yeah, it's great. 30-30 is an easy chambering to reload. If you're a hand loader, it's got a tapered bottleneck cartridge, so it doesn't drag in the dies, like some cartridges do. So for me, I always found it very easy to hand load 30-30. It's a cartridge I would recommend somebody to start hand loading with. So really, the 30-30, some of the others aside, but the 30-30 in these two formats is like one of the best guns you can get. Honestly, it's a mid-sized round. It's still a 308 diameter projectile, and it's going out the barrel at a pretty respectable speed. You can't really ask for more than that. I mean, it's rapid fire. If you can't have an assault weapon, I don't know of any place in the continental United States that you can go and get into trouble by having a lever action. By comparison, I've had game wardens tell me that, they'll walk up to somebody hunting, and if they're holding an AR in the woods, whether it's AR 308 or whatever it is, they tend to look at them a little different, and they'll say, do you mind putting your gun down? Show me a hunting license or whatever. If they walk up on somebody and they've got a lever action like a 30-30, it's more like, Hey, how you doing? Hey, is that a Model 94? Nice, I got one of those at home. Can you show me your license? They do tend to look at you a little different. And I understand that. A lot of people don't like black rifles, whatever. A lot of people think that maybe the popularity behind these lever actions are TV shows like Longmire, like Joe Pickett, like Yellowstone, these modern westerns, so to speak. Although, I will say that I've seen as many black rifles on Yellowstone, maybe more, than I have lever actions. But old John Dunton, I'm pretty sure I saw him carrying one of these. I have. I think you'll probably find one of these in almost all of the Yellowstone series, except the 1880s, because it was the 1880s, and the Model 94 wasn't around, obviously, back then. But anyway, so there's the pop culture maybe driving it a little bit too. Maybe people just want to get back to the old days. I know I kind of do. And that's one of the reasons one of my favorite guns is this little trapper Winchester right here. Very short barrel, 16 inches. This one's the angle eject model. It's got the rebounding hammer. It's another one of the guns that people didn't used to like. But now these are getting to be worth a lot of money. So if you want one, I advise you to go out and get one. And if you're looking for one, I'd make sure you had that credit card with you or the cash to buy one on the spot. Because if you're thinking if you see it today and you go back to get it tomorrow, it's probably not going to be there. It's probably not going to be there. Now, the new model ones from Marlin, now that Marlin has been bought out by Ruger, Marlin is coming back. They're making some really nice stuff. But just like the Winchesters made by Moroku over in Japan, very expensive. They're very expensive. And if I'm going to spend $1,500 on a firearm, I'm probably not going to be dragging it around in the woods and strapping it to the tractor and things like that. So we look at more of the used specimens. And even though now, even those are going to be, $500, $600, $700. So they're pricey. They're starting to get pricey. But, I mean, the Marlins, over $4 million made. The Winchester Model 94, $7 million made, So they're out there. You can find them. And we're talking about the old ones here. We're not talking about current production. They're a whole lot of fun. They're a great hunting rifle, especially if you don't need optics. And they're very, very, very practical. They're also practical and easy to reload. Can't beat them. There's a lot to love about the lever action carbine. I could do a whole nother video about each of these guns because of the variants. I mean, you're going to find them with round barrels, long barrels, short barrels, long magazines, short magazines, octagon barrels, half octagon barrels, curved butt plates, metal butt plates, Bakelite butt plates, different sights. They changed a lot over the years. There's a whole lot of history. So if you're into that and you want to buy one of these, you're really buying a piece of history. And they are truly the American rifle. I don't know of anywhere in the world where lever action rifles, especially Model 94s, things like that, are anywhere near as popular as they are here in America. You might say Canada, and you'd probably be right, because a lot of them, went up there for hunters and trappers, things like that. They probably have as many up there as we do. But to me, they are and they always will be America's rifle. This is Scott from Whiskey and Sunshine. Like, subscribe. And with that, I'm going to say thanks. Have a great day.